My name is Kayla. I'm 22 years old, and I just graduated from college with a degree in mechanical engineering. I live in a small, quiet estate called Hawthorne Ridge, and for as long as I can remember, I've always felt like the invisible child in my family. My older sister, Vanessa, has always been the star. She's 25 now. When she graduated from high school, my parents threw her a huge party, bought her a new car, and paid for every cent of her college. Tuition, rent, books, even spending money. I remember the day they took her to her new dorm. My mom cried like she was sending a queen off to rule a new country. My dad took the whole week off work just to help her settle in. But when it was my turn to graduate from high school 3 years later, there was no party, no car, no "we're proud of you" speeches. No one even talked about college. They acted like I was just there. I worked 2 part-time jobs during high school, waitressing at a diner and babysitting for a family across the street. Every penny I saved went into my little metal lockbox under my bed. I had no choice but to apply for scholarships, loans, and grants if I ever wanted to go to college. I managed to scrape by with a full ride for tuition, but I still had to cover books, food, and rent. It was hard, really hard. There were nights I had to choose between dinner and buying a textbook. Vanessa, on the other hand, would post pictures of her weekend trips to the lake, shopping sprees, and Starbucks runs every morning. Always smiling, always wearing something new. I didn't hate her for it at first. I just told myself she's lucky. That's all. But then came the day I asked my parents for help. Just once. It was sophomore year and I had an emergency. My laptop, the old one I'd been using since high school, finally gave out the night before a major project was due. I called my dad in tears. I didn't ask for a new MacBook or anything expensive. I just needed a working computer. He sighed like I was bothering him and said, "You're an adult now, Kayla. Learn how to take care of yourself." I hung up and cried in the bathroom of my apartment. Then I went to a pawn shop and bought the cheapest laptop they had. It barely worked, but I made it through. The turning point, the moment everything in me shifted, was during Thanksgiving break last year. I had gone home just to be polite, even though I didn't feel welcome. Vanessa had flown in from out of state, and of course she got the guest room. I was stuck on the pull-out couch. At dinner, my dad raised a glass to Vanessa and said, "To our greatest accomplishment. We couldn't be prouder of the woman you've become." Everyone clapped. My mom wiped a tear. I sat there with my fork frozen in midair. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I smiled. I took a deep breath, and I began to plan. That night, as I lay on that stiff couch, I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't beg them to see me. I would become something so successful, so undeniable, that their silence would speak louder than words. I would make them feel every ounce of shame they should have carried. I would give them a moment, one moment, where their hearts would drop, their faces would freeze, and they'd realize just how badly they had failed me. I just had to wait for the right time. Fast forward to graduation. The big day. I had kept my distance from home all year. Barely texting, never calling unless I had to. They didn't even know what day my graduation ceremony was until a week before. When I sent them the invitation, I didn't add a personal message, just a time and place. They replied with a simple, "We'll be there." Vanessa texted me that morning, "Congrats, little sis. Can't wait to celebrate." I didn't reply. The ceremony was beautiful. Bright, sunny day, full crowd, and for once I felt proud of myself. Truly proud. I had made it. Not with help. Not with praise. But with grit. I walked across the stage with my head high. My gown billowed behind me. The cheers from the audience blended into a sea of noise. I couldn't tell if my parents clapped, and honestly, I didn't care. Afterward, they came up to me with fake smiles plastered on their faces. My mom hugged me tightly and said, "We're so proud of you, honey." My dad gave me a nod and added, "You did good, kid." But I saw it. That flicker of surprise in their eyes. They didn't expect me to look so put together, confident. My dress was sleek and elegant. My heels were new. My nails were polished. Everything about me screamed success. Vanessa asked, "So what's next for you?" I smiled. I actually got a job offer already. Engineering firm. Great benefits. 6-figure salary starting. Their jaws nearly dropped. "Oh, wow," my dad muttered. My mom blinked like she was processing it. Then Vanessa laughed nervously. "Dang, sis, you're gonna be rich." I just nodded and said, "Yeah, it's funny how things work out." They offered to take me out to dinner. I agreed. We went to a nice restaurant in town, the kind with cloth napkins and a violin player in the corner. The waiter handed us menus, and my dad made a show of saying, "Order whatever you want. It's on us." We talked about small things, weather, traffic, what I planned to do with my new job. They avoided talking about college or the past, but I could feel it. They were uncomfortable, like they were realizing something but didn't want to say it out loud. Then dessert came. A big chocolate cake with "Congrats, Kayla" written in red frosting. I smiled at it. I thanked them. And then I stood up. "Actually," I said, "I have a gift for you guys, too." They looked surprised. I pulled a small envelope from my purse and handed it to my dad. He opened it slowly. Inside was a photocopy of my college tuition breakdown. On the second page, I had written out in red ink every single cost I had covered on my own: tuition, books, rent, food, emergencies. At the bottom, I wrote, "Total paid by me, $1,890,000." My dad's face paled. My mom leaned over to read it, and her hands trembled. But the real twist wasn't the money. It was the note at the very back of the envelope. A single sentence. "I know what you did for Vanessa, and I know what you didn't do for me." Silence. The violin player kept playing, but the air around our table felt like it had frozen. They looked at me, then at each other, like they had seen a ghost. My mom opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I sat back down, calm as ever. "I just thought you should know what it cost me, since you never asked." That was when the waiter returned, smiling brightly. "Are we ready for the check?" My dad stared at the envelope in his hands, then nodded weakly. "Yes, yeah." The less extreme part came the next day. I returned to Hawthorne Ridge and unpacked the last of my things from college. My new job started in 2 weeks, and I spent the day setting up my home office and trying to breathe. There was a weight lifted from my chest. But just as I was about to turn in for the night, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Vanessa. It read, "What did you say to them?" Mom hasn't stopped crying since dinner. Dad's locked himself in the den. What's going on? I stared at the screen, not knowing whether to feel satisfaction or guilt. And then, 2 hours later, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, my dad was standing there, eyes red, holding something behind his back. "Can we talk?" he asked. I didn't answer, because what he held behind his back made my heart race. It was a check, and it was made out to me. He held out the check like it weighed 100 pounds. His hand trembled slightly, and for the first time in my life, I saw something in my father's eyes I had never seen before: shame. I stood frozen in the doorway, the night air cool against my skin. I didn't reach for it. I didn't even look at the amount. "I figured out how much we spent on Vanessa's education," he said quietly. "We owed you that much. Maybe more." I didn't move. "You don't have to forgive us, Kayla," he added. "But I wanted you to know I'm sorry. We failed you." Those words hit me like a truck. For a second, all the walls I'd built inside me started to shake. But I remembered everything. The birthdays they forgot. The nights I went to bed hungry while they sent Vanessa more shopping money. The rejection. The silence. So I didn't take the check. Instead, I crossed my arms and asked, "Is that why you're here? To write me a check and call it even?" He swallowed hard. "No, that's not why I'm here. I just wanted to make things right." I raised an eyebrow. "Did you bring Mom too? Or was this a solo mission?" His jaw clenched. She's not ready. She's embarrassed. I nodded slowly, then stepped back. You can come in, but the check stays in your car. He looked surprised, but followed me inside. We sat in the small living room. He looked around at the modest furniture, the clean space, the graduation photo already framed on the wall. He noticed the books stacked neatly by the window, titles he had never seen me read, topics he'd never asked about. I didn't realize how much you'd grown up, he said, mostly to himself. I didn't have much choice. He nodded. I deserve that. I didn't argue. We sat in silence for a while, and for once it wasn't awkward. Just heavy. Real. I always thought we were treating both of you equally, he said, but now I see that we weren't even trying to understand you. You didn't have to treat us the same, I said quietly. You just had to show me I mattered. His eyes welled up. I'm sorry. Another silence. Then he stood and headed for the door. I'll leave the check in the mailbox. If you don't want it, rip it up. But it's yours, Kayla. Every dollar. When the door closed behind him, I walked slowly to the mailbox. The check was sitting inside, just like he said. I brought it inside and stared at the amount. $241000. I placed it on the kitchen counter, untouched. I wasn't ready to decide yet. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls and 2 voicemails. All from Vanessa. Kayla, please call me. Mom's not doing well. She thinks you hate her. I know she messed up, but please talk to her. Another voicemail. They told me about the check. Did Dad seriously try to give you money now? This is such a mess. I didn't call her back right away. Instead, I went to the park nearby and sat on a bench for a few hours, just watching people go by. Parents pushing strollers, kids laughing, an old couple sharing a sandwich. I thought about everything, how my family had shaped me, how the pain made me stronger, how being ignored became my fuel. I thought about how it all led me to this point where I had power, voice, control. When I got back home that evening, Vanessa was parked outside my place, sitting on the hood of her car. She jumped up as soon as she saw me. Kayla, she said. Finally. I sighed. You drove all the way here? She nodded. Of course. You ghosted me. I unlocked my front door, but didn't invite her in. I didn't ghost you. I just didn't want to talk. She frowned. Look, I know Mom and Dad weren't fair. I've always known. But I didn't ask for special treatment, you know. I never told them to ignore you. I stared at her. No, you just enjoyed it. She looked down. Yeah, I guess I did. There was something raw in her voice. No filters. No fake smiles. She continued. I didn't want to be the golden child. I just didn't want to lose it. You were always smarter, more focused. Deep down, I knew you'd outgrow them. I didn't want to end up forgotten. That stunned me. For once, Vanessa wasn't the perfect older sister with a flawless life. She was just a scared girl who'd clung to attention because she feared what would happen without it. I didn't hate you, I whispered. I just hated how they made me feel invisible. She stepped forward. I want to fix things. I want to be your sister for real, not just the one in family photos. I didn't hug her. I didn't cry. I just said, that's a start. Later that night, I finally cashed the check. Not because I wanted their money, but because it was mine. It had always been mine in a way, and I planned to do something meaningful with it. The next few weeks were quiet. My job started. I got into a rhythm. I even texted Vanessa a few times. It was weird having her act like a real sibling, but I didn't hate it. Then, one Saturday afternoon, I got an email that made my stomach twist. It was from my college. Subject: Commencement day footage featured student highlight. Attached was a video file. I clicked on it, expecting a simple clip of my name being called, maybe a short interview. But what I saw made my blood run cold. The video started with shots of me walking across the stage, my name echoing through the speakers. Then it cut to a short interview I had done for the school's media team a few weeks before graduation. I had almost forgotten about it. In the clip, I said, I paid for my entire education on my own. My parents didn't support me financially at all, but I made it, and I'm proud of that. Then the interviewer asked, "What's your message to others who feel overlooked?" I looked straight into the camera and said, "You don't have to be anyone's favorite to be unforgettable. Just don't let their silence define your worth." The screen went black. End of video. A chill ran through me. I had no idea they had included that clip. I had assumed it would be cut or buried under footage of other students. But it wasn't. It was front and center. I scrolled down. The video had been posted to the college's official YouTube channel and had over 3 million views. And that's when my phone started to ring. Again and again. First Vanessa, then Mom, then an unknown number. Because apparently someone at my dad's job had seen it, and things were about to explode. I didn't answer any of the calls. My hands were shaking too much. I just stood there, staring at my phone, the screen lighting up every few seconds like a warning signal. Then a message popped up from Vanessa. "Kayla, you need to call Dad. Like now. It's bad. Really bad." I didn't move. My heart was pounding in my chest like a drum. The video was public. The truth was out. And while I hadn't mentioned their names or shamed them directly, it didn't take a genius to connect the dots, especially in our small town, where everyone knew everyone else. I took a deep breath and opened the video again. In the comments, people were praising my courage. "This girl is amazing. Imagine your own parents abandoning you, and she still came out stronger. Whoever her parents are, they should be ashamed." My stomach twisted, not because I regretted what I said, but because the fire I'd lit was starting to spread faster than I expected. Then I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Is it true your parents paid for your sister's college, but not yours?" I blinked at the screen. "Are you the girl from the video? We'd love to interview you for our blog. Message us." Requests started flooding in, blogs, podcasts, small media outlets. I felt like the ground under me was shifting, like the quiet world I had built for myself was cracking open. That night, I finally called Vanessa. She picked up immediately, her voice in a panic. "Kayla, thank God. Dad's work found the video. His manager saw it on YouTube and sent it to HR, thinking it might be fake." I rubbed my forehead. Why would HR care? "Because Kayla," she lowered her voice, "he talks about us all the time at work. Brags about how he sent both his daughters to college. He even had our photos on his desk." My lips parted. "You're joking." "No. He's been using the whole supportive father of 2 successful daughters image for years. It was part of how he got promoted. Now everyone knows the truth." I sat down hard on my couch. "Did he lie that much?" "Yes. And now he's under review for reputation integrity concerns. Mom's freaking out. Says you set him up." I laughed bitterly. "Set him up? I didn't say his name. I didn't even think anyone outside the school would see it." "Yeah, well, the internet works fast." Then she said something that made me pause. "They're scared, Kayla. Not just embarrassed, scared. They think you're going to say more, maybe even name them." My fingers tightened around the phone. I hadn't planned to say anything else. But now that I knew what they'd been hiding, the lies, the false pride, the way they used me as a ghost to build their fake image, I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep quiet. "They made me invisible," I said slowly. "Now they're terrified I'll make them visible in the worst way." "Exactly," Vanessa whispered. "You have all the power right now." That night I didn't sleep. I stayed up reading the comments, responding to a few, ignoring the rest. My inbox was overflowing. People from broken families were messaging me, saying how much my words meant to them. Some were angry for me. Others told me they'd been through the same thing. It was overwhelming. But one message stood out. It was from a girl named Jessica. "Thank you. I almost gave up on college because my parents said I wasn't worth the cost. Your video made me feel like I'm not alone." That single line lit a fire in me I couldn't ignore. I decided to do something with the attention I was getting. I set up a blog. Nothing fancy, just a page where I shared parts of my journey. Tips for surviving school on your own, scholarships I had used, and the truth about being the forgotten child. I called it Worthy Anyway. Within a week, it had 5,000 subscribers. 2 local news stations emailed me asking for interviews. I declined both, not ready to take things public on camera. But the storm around my parents didn't quiet down. One afternoon, as I returned home from work, I saw someone waiting on my front steps. My mom, hair pulled back tight, wrinkles deeper than I remembered. She looked older, smaller, almost like a stranger. She stood up when I got closer. "Can we talk?" she asked. I opened the door and walked inside without saying anything. She followed. I didn't offer her a drink. I didn't ask her to sit. She stood awkwardly in the middle of my living room, eyes darting to the graduation photo on the wall. Then she turned to face me. "You've made quite the mess," she said flatly. I stared at her. I told the truth. "You embarrassed your father in front of his whole company." "No," I said slowly. "He embarrassed himself." I didn't tell lies. He did. Her face twisted. "We were doing what we thought was best." "For who?" I snapped. "Vanessa? Yourselves." "You were always strong," she said quickly. "You didn't need us." "That's not how parenting works," I said. "You don't pick the quiet one to ignore because she doesn't scream for help." She opened her mouth, then closed it. Then she tried a different approach. "Your father might lose his job. Maybe he should have thought of that before lying about raising both his daughters with equal love." She flinched. There was silence. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "I came here to offer you something." I raised an eyebrow. "What, another check?" "No," she said. "An apology. In writing. From both of us." I blinked. She held it out. "You can post it. Or burn it. It's yours." I took it, but didn't open it. "Not yet. And one more thing," she added. "Your grandmother's house. In Lister Bend." That made me freeze. "She left it to the family," Mom continued. "But your father and I agreed it should be yours." Lister Bend. A forgotten little neighborhood, but that house had history. It was the only place I remembered being hugged as a kid. My grandma was the only one who ever treated me with warmth. I narrowed my eyes. "Why now?" "Because," she said quietly, "we lost your trust. And I don't know if we'll ever earn it back. But that house, maybe it's a start." I didn't say a word. Just watched her leave. Later, I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter. 2 pages. Signed by both of them. No excuses, no lies. Just apologies. Words I never thought I'd hear. And a copy of the deed transfer form for the Lister Bend house. For the first time I cried. Not because I forgave them, but because the girl they forgot was finally being remembered. That weekend I drove to Lister Bend. The house was old, but still standing strong. The paint was chipped, the garden wild, but it felt right. I walked through the empty rooms and remembered the smell of cinnamon, the way Grandma used to hum when she cooked, the way she called me her brightest little light. And then I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. On the living room wall, behind an old curtain rod, there was a small, black and white photo stuck between 2 panels. It was me, at 5 years old, in her arms, both of us smiling. I sat down on the floor and held it in my hands, my fingers trembling. And that's when the next message came through. From a producer. "We saw your blog and story. We want to feature you in a national segment about self-made students. It airs next month. Interested?" I stared at the screen. Everything was changing. Fast. And I hadn't even told them the full story yet. Not even close. The message blinked at me. National TV. Primetime slot. One-on-one interview. We'll fly you out and cover all expenses. I didn't know what to feel at first. It was like I was outside my own body, reading someone else's story. Me. On national TV? A year ago, I was scraping by working 3 jobs and skipping meals just to save a little money. Now a producer from a major network was inviting me to tell my story. I called Vanessa. "You're going to be on TV," she shrieked. "Kayla, that's insane. You're like famous." I laughed, but it didn't feel real. I don't think I'm famous. Just noticed. That's still something. They noticed you, not mom and dad's fake, perfect family image. You. I haven't said yes yet, I admitted. Why not? Because once I go on air, I'm really telling the world. And this time I can't leave out names. If I do this, I won't be able to protect them anymore. Vanessa went quiet on the other end. Then she said, "I don't think they deserve protection, Kayla. Not after what they did. But whatever you decide, I've got your back." I sat on the porch of the Listerbend house, holding Grandma's old quilt in my lap, and stared out at the overgrown yard. The air smelled of honeysuckle and damp wood. I could almost hear Grandma humming in the kitchen. I made my decision. 3 days later, I was on a plane to New York City. The studio was bright and cold. Everyone wore headsets and moved quickly. I was assigned a handler who helped with my outfit, hair, and makeup. They gave me a powder blue blouse and told me to look confident but vulnerable. The interviewer was warm and polite. She asked if I needed anything and reassured me it was a casual conversation. Still, I could feel the nerves buzzing under my skin. The lights came on, the camera blinked red, and the interview began. She asked about my background, my love for engineering, how I managed college without help. I talked about the scholarships, the loan rejection letters, the tears behind every congratulations email. Then she leaned forward and said, "You mentioned in your viral video that your parents paid for your sister's education, but not yours. Can you tell us more about that?" My heart thumped. This was the moment. I looked into the camera, took a breath, and told the story, my story. I didn't use rage. I didn't use pity. I used truth. How I found out they paid for Vanessa but told me they had nothing left. How I'd worked part-time through college. How they skipped my graduation. How they brushed off my successes as luck and told me to be grateful, even though they gave me nothing but silence. I said their names. Full names. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. But I saw the interviewer's eyes widen slightly. She didn't expect that level of honesty. When the segment ended, the producer gave me a quiet nod. "That was powerful," he said. "You'll be hearing from us again." I flew back home the next day. The episode aired 3 nights later, and then all hell broke loose. My phone exploded with messages, friends, strangers, classmates, people I hadn't heard from in years. I got emails from teachers who remembered me as the quiet one. One wrote, "I wish I had known what you were going through. You hid it well." Then came the backlash. From my parents. They didn't call. They didn't text. But they did post. My dad went on Facebook and wrote a long, dramatic post about betrayal and fabricated stories. My mom shared it with crying emojis and comments like, "We always did our best." Some children forget that. But the damage was done. Their coworkers saw the interview. Their friends saw the video. Even people at their church started asking questions. Then something happened that I didn't expect. My old neighbor, Mr. Calhoun, messaged me. "Kayla, I remember your dad bragging about paying for Vanessa's school. Said he was proud to invest in his smartest kid. I never forgot how he said it like you weren't even part of the family." It hit me like a punch to the gut. Even the neighbors knew. I really had been invisible. Then I got a message from the HR department at my dad's company. They didn't say much, just that they were investigating a potential conflict between public image and internal ethics. They asked if I would be willing to speak to someone privately. I agreed. A week later, I sat down for a video call with a woman named Dana from their ethics committee. She was calm, professional, and direct. "We've received multiple complaints about your father," she said, "about him misrepresenting himself and his family to gain public goodwill and leadership positions. I blinked. You mean for lying about being a supportive father? Dana nodded. Yes. At this level, personal integrity is tied to leadership credibility. His entire mentorship platform was built on the narrative that he raised 2 daughters through college with equal love and support. My mouth went dry. She added, we also found documents he submitted where he claimed tax credits and used your name as a dependent, even after you moved out. What? I said, shocked. He claimed me. For 2 years, she confirmed. We're following up with the IRS. This is a serious issue. My stomach twisted. They hadn't just abandoned me emotionally. They had used me financially without giving me a single dollar. We'll be in touch, Dana said before ending the call. I sat in silence. My chest was burning, my mind spinning. And then came the breaking point. The letter. It came in a plain envelope, dropped off at the Listerbend house. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a single note written in my father's handwriting. Congratulations. You've destroyed your own family. I hope it was worth it. I stared at the paper, my hands trembling. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't ashamed. He still believed he was the victim. I stood up, walked outside, and set the note on fire. Watched it burn to ash in the breeze. That night, Vanessa called. They're threatening to sue you, she said quietly. I snorted. For what? Telling the truth. They're saying you've ruined Dad's reputation, that you cost him his job, that you used the blog and video to defame the family. I laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. He ruined himself. I know, she said. I want you to be ready. They're angrier than ever. I looked at my blog, now at 20,000 subscribers. People were reading, sharing, supporting, but something was still missing. I hadn't told them what happened at graduation. I hadn't told them about the moment their faces went pale. And maybe it was time. I opened a blank page on the blog, typed a title. My parents paid for my sister's college, but not mine. At graduation, their faces went pale when ... I paused, then began writing the next part of the story. But before I could even publish it, I got a knock at the door. I opened it slowly. Standing there, in a sharp suit and a tight smile, was a man with a letter in his hand. Miss Kayla Bennett, he asked. I nodded. You've been served. The door slammed shut behind him, leaving me frozen on the porch, legal papers in hand. My fingers trembled as I opened the thick envelope, eyes scanning the first lines. Cease and desist, defamation, emotional distress, request for damages of $25,000. My chest tightened. They really did it. They were suing me, not just threatening to, not just bluffing online or crying for attention. My parents had officially dragged me into court because I told the truth. I sat down slowly on the porch steps, staring at the paper like it was written in another language. I couldn't cry. Not yet. Not when I was still processing the audacity of it all. After everything they'd done, after leaving me out in the cold, paying for Vanessa's tuition and pretending they were broke, skipping my graduation like I didn't exist, and now suing me? It was almost laughable. Except it wasn't. I pulled out my phone and called Vanessa. She answered on the first ring. They served me, I said quietly. She gasped. What? You're kidding. I turned the letter to the second page. They want $25,000 in damages, claiming I ruined their public image, caused emotional trauma, and, get this, created false narratives online to gain financial and social benefits. Vanessa made a sound like she was choking. They're calling your life story a false narrative. I can't make this stuff up, I said, my voice hollow. We sat in silence for a long time. Then she said, You're not going through this alone, Kayla. I've got your back. I can testify if it comes to that. I hope it won't. But if it does, she said firmly, you have receipts. Texts, emails, their absence, their words. All of it. And you've never lied. I nodded slowly, my resolve tightening like armor. They wanted a war. Fine, they'll get one. That night, I called a friend from college, Jordan, who is now working for a nonprofit law center. He picked up immediately. Kayla? Hey, I saw the interview. Amazing work. What's up? I need legal help, I said straight to the point. My parents are suing me. Jordan didn't laugh or gasp. He just said, I'm listening. Start from the beginning. So I did. Every painful detail. He asked questions, requested copies of the cease and desist letter, then said, You've got a strong defense. Possibly even a counterclaim if they used your name for taxes without your consent. I just want them to stop, I admitted. I didn't do this to ruin them. I just wanted to speak the truth. I wanted people to know it hurt. He paused, then said something I wouldn't forget. Sometimes, Kayla, the truth doesn't ruin people. It reveals them. The next morning, I filed an official response with the help of Jordan and his team. They worked pro bono because my story had caught the attention of other lawyers, ones who believed in fighting for people like me. In the response, we included all the proof. My graduation photos, none with my parents. The university receipts, showing I paid every cent on my own. Screenshots of my dad saying he couldn't help me with school, then bragging online about covering Vanessa's. And even the email from HR that suggested he used me on his tax forms while providing no financial support. When I sent it to Jordan, he called me that evening, excited. This case won't go anywhere. If anything, they should be worried. You've got more leverage than you think. But despite his confidence, the anxiety in my stomach didn't go away. The hearing was set for a preliminary review, just enough for a judge to determine if there was a real case. It would be over Zoom, but still official. I spent the night before pacing the living room, staring out at the dark trees lining the edge of Lister Bend. Then I got an email from my old high school principal. Subject line, Your story matters. Inside he wrote, Asterisk Kayla, I remember you. Quiet, hardworking, always polite. You deserved better. If you need a character witness, I'll be there. I saw how hard you worked. They didn't. Asterisk. It was like a hug through the screen. One that reminded me I wasn't the villain in this. Then the day came. I sat in front of my laptop, hair pulled back, notes laid out, nerves shooting through my veins. Vanessa sat beside me, off camera, but holding my hand. The judge joined. My parents were already on the screen, stiff-faced, their lawyers speaking for them. The judge asked basic questions, then gave me the floor. I kept it simple. I told my story, how I worked through college while my sister didn't have to, how my parents ghosted me after high school while still claiming me as a dependent, how I started the blog not to shame them, but to tell my truth and connect with others who felt abandoned too. The judge listened quietly. My parents' lawyer tried to argue defamation, that I humiliated them, that I made them look bad on purpose. But when I shared the texts where they admitted they had nothing left for me and compared them to the checks they sent Vanessa, the tone shifted. Finally, the judge said, I'm not seeing sufficient evidence of defamation here. What I do see is a family dispute and a young woman sharing her personal story. As far as this court is concerned, no further action is needed. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. My parents' faces didn't pale yet, but they twitched. I saw Dad's jaw tighten. Mom blinked rapidly, like she couldn't believe what just happened. The suit was dismissed, but I wasn't done. When the call ended, I looked at Vanessa. It's time. She nodded. That night, I hit publish on the most powerful post I'd ever written. My parents paid for my sister's college, but not mine. At graduation, their faces went pale when I walked on stage, wearing the honor medal that was supposed to be theirs. I told the full story, how they skipped my graduation but showed up anyway, expecting to be honored as Parents of the Year. They didn't know the school had called me weeks before, offering me the valedictorian role after another student dropped out. They didn't know I had planned the whole thing quietly, and they definitely didn't know I'd told the dean everything about my parents. When the time came, they were called to the stage, but not to receive recognition. No, I was the one who stepped forward. I walked out wearing the Medal of Honor and delivered a speech about strength, resilience, and surviving emotional abandonment. I said right into the mic, asterisk, sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most will treat you the worst. But that doesn't mean you're not worthy of love, respect, or success. Sometimes you have to build your own support system. And sometimes silence isn't golden. It's just the way people hide. Asterisk. The crowd gave a standing ovation. My parents had no choice but to sit there, expressionless, as every lie they told about being supportive was quietly erased in front of hundreds. That was the moment their faces went pale. The post went viral, but that wasn't the only thing that went public, because right after that, a major news outlet picked up the blog, and they weren't just interested in my story anymore. They were interested in my dad's tax fraud. It started with a phone call 2 days after the blog post went viral again. I was sitting on the porch of Vanessa's apartment, sipping a cold soda, trying to breathe for once. For the first time in weeks, I actually felt a little free. Then my phone rang. The number was unknown. Hello. I answered cautiously. Is this Kayla Henderson? Yes, who's this? This is Agent Perry from the IRS. We'd like to ask you a few questions regarding a tax-related issue connected to your name. My chest tightened again, but not from fear this time. I sat straighter. Of course. I'm available to talk. Agent Perry was professional, polite, and very thorough. He asked if I was aware that my parents had claimed me as a dependent for multiple years, specifically during college. I confirmed I was aware, but I had never consented. I told him how I'd been paying my own tuition, rent, food, insurance, everything, that I hadn't lived with them since I was 18. There was a pause. Then he said, "Thank you. That aligns with other information we've received." Other information? Wait, I said. How did this even come up? There was a hint of a smile in his voice. Well, your story gained national attention. Some readers sent in tips. We reviewed the tax records and noticed some discrepancies. I nearly dropped my drink. Strangers, people I didn't even know. They had my back. Agent Perry assured me I wasn't in trouble. Quite the opposite. I might even be due a tax correction, and maybe a refund if fraud was proven. When I hung up, I just stared at the phone in disbelief. They're being audited, I whispered to Vanessa. She dropped the cereal spoon she was holding. Are you serious? Dead serious. The IRS is coming for them. She blinked, then burst out laughing. That's what they get. That's what they get. For the first time in a long time, I laughed too. But it didn't stop there. Days passed and more dominoes fell. Someone from my dad's job contacted me anonymously. Apparently, the higher-ups were starting to question why a man earning over $100,000 a year claimed he couldn't afford his daughter's education, while paying for his other child's lavish college life. There were rumors that his company's internal HR was investigating his dependent claims, especially after more people came forward. Turns out, I wasn't the only one. 2 of his previous interns, women who also happened to be young and struggling, had tried to ask him for mentorship. One even claimed he promised her a letter of recommendation, then ghosted her when she didn't act grateful enough. Everything was unraveling. Meanwhile, I was thriving. My blog readership tripled. A small podcast invited me on to talk about emotional family neglect and college hardship. My post-graduation job offer, which had been on hold, was officially confirmed. I was starting at a digital media firm in 2 weeks, fully remote, and paying $8,000 more than the average entry-level salary. The manager said she admired my strength. But the real surprise came one morning when I opened my email and saw a message with the subject, Scholarship Fund Proposal. It was from a woman named Jenna, the founder of a nonprofit organization that helped students estranged from their families. She wrote, Asterisk, your story moved us. We'd like to start a scholarship fund in your name, the Kayla Henderson Fund, for students who've been abandoned by their families during college. If you're willing, we'd love your involvement in setting it up. Asterisk. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was changing lives. That afternoon, I drove to Lister Bend. I hadn't been back in weeks, but I wanted one final look at the house. The place that once made me feel small, voiceless. It looked the same, but something inside me had shifted. I stood outside, staring up at the brick walls, the white shutters, the porch swing that used to creak when I was 10. And then the front door opened. It was my mom. She froze when she saw me. Her hair was messy, like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't angry, just tired. Kayla, she said softly. I didn't say anything. She stepped onto the porch. You won. I tilted my head. This wasn't about winning. You just thought I'd never speak. Her shoulders slumped. I didn't know it would go this far, she whispered. Yes, you did, I said. You knew what silence would do. You just thought I'd stay quiet forever. Like always. She looked down. I took a step forward. You told people I abandoned the family, but you left me long before I ever left you. Your dad's losing his job, she said suddenly. There's an investigation now. He's blaming you. I nodded slowly. Let him. She opened her mouth to say something else, but I turned and walked away. That was the last time I saw her. Days later, I got the final update. My dad had resigned before HR could terminate him. His benefits were frozen. The IRS was pressing forward with penalties, and he owed back taxes for 3 years. Their perfect reputation? Gone. They went from posting inspirational quotes on Facebook to radio silence. Meanwhile, I helped launch the scholarship fund. We got over $45,000 in donations within the first month. I spoke on college campuses. I received letters from young people who said, Your story made me feel seen. That was the real revenge, not the public downfall, not the IRS audit or the job loss. It was me rising, even after they tried to keep me small. It was me showing the world that family isn't about blood. It's about love, respect, and truth. And the truth? I wasn't the shameful daughter they tried to pretend didn't exist. I was the proof that even when people fail you, you can still succeed. You can still shine. And now, I help others do the same.